This is the Forward Motion Business Show with Professor Ken and Professor Paul A. Marino. Hit new heights. Start with Forward Motion.
Hey, welcome to the Forward Motion Business Show. I'm Professor Ken.
And I'm Professor Paul A. Marino.
And Paul, why don't you introduce our guest today? We have a wonderful show for you today. We're speaking about the Children's Trust and all the great things that they do here, and tie that into the community and how it's important to have that type of community-based service for not only our children, but also for all the businesses around.
Well, we have with us tonight Juliette Fabian. Juliette is the Director of Projects for the Children's Trust. Do I have that correct, Juliette?
That's close enough.
Close enough, okay. And we've worked very close together. She's been a mentor to me in my philanthropic endeavors. I'm very grateful for her being in my life, and I thought I'd bring her on. And why don't you start by telling us a little bit about the Children's Trust and what their mission is?
Yes, thank you so much, Paul. And you warm my heart with this great introduction. I consider you a mentor because every time we meet, we're talking about issues and how to solve them. I always walk away with something that we can focus on to make, the life of children and family of Miami-Dade County better. So thank you for that. So the Children's Trust, for those of you who don't know, we have, I think some part of the state of Florida, it's known as Children's Services Council. So Miami-Dade, we are, the first one who call ourselves the Children's Trust, because we didn't want to just go by the the Children's Services Council. We wanted to have the word of trust in our name, because especially since we're using taxpayers' dollars, we get our funding from property taxes. We wanted to make sure people trust us, and also it's if we're gonna fund children's program, we wanted to make sure we being accountable for the taxpayers' dollars. So Children's Trust, simple way of putting it, we are quasi-government. The reason I say quasi-government, since we get funding to taxpayers like property taxes, so we are a government entity, but we don't function like one. And no, we're not gonna go there about how government entity they do function, right. But we just wanna make sure we are an organization. It's not just we do this check. We really care about making the lives of children and family better in our community. Therefore, our strategic plan, whatever we do, it's really, we have to think about what do family and children's needs in our community, and how do we address all those issues. And you both are educators, so you know the importance of addressing social determinant of health, because if you have students showing up to your classes and they don't have a place to stay, and they have a troublesome household, their parents are fighting all the time because of whatever reason, alcohol abuse, drug abuse. So those are the type of student you see in your classes every day. So what we do at the Children's Trust is try to address those social determinants to make sure children can learn, they can thrive in life, and take up, help them cope with all those challenges they're facing in their life.
Now, I understand, we had Shelley Solomon on. She was on this program nice. Prior. I understand that the Trust has strategic initiatives, like you work with children of inmates. I believe you work with trafficked women. Tell us about the specific areas that you're addressing.
Oh my goodness. So without going into the minutiae about all our fundings, I can give you globally. So in our strategic investments, so we either work with the children themselves, from birth to 18 years old, and if they have some sort of disability, we can go all the way to 22, or we can work with the parents. So we have some programs that fall under youth development, or early childhood development, and we have other programs that more about, family services, like support to families. So to give some example of the type of program under family services, that's where Shelley's organization fall under our families partnership program. So we try to provide some sort of stabilization to our families that's struggling to make ends meet, or dealing with some social emotional issues. In the case of Shelley, those are incarcerated parents that are in prison, right? So what about the children? How do they, I'm sure Shelley discussed that last time. I don't have to explain her program, but this is the type of initiative we support in terms of thinking about parents, because we know, even though with the Children's Trust, we're supposed to focus on children, but you cannot serve children without addressing the parents. The whole family, the whole concept. And some other programs directly targeting children, like without the family involved, like early childhood programming. So we know based on, literature and, that we know the biggest investment, if you want children to grow up as productive adult, we need to invest in early childhood development. So we do a lot of support there to make sure. So we try to address different ways.
Well, speaking of early childhood development, we both have a hero in that area, both of us, Mr. David Lawrence.
Absolutely.
And he's been a giant in our community, just a giant. I mean, it is such a blessing to know him and have his mentorship. I know you feel the same way I feel.
Absolutely.
He is, correct me if I'm wrong, he's responsible for starting the Children's Trust, isn't he?
Absolutely. Like, he plays like a major, he's our founding chairs. And if you read about history, actually, I want to share that this year we're celebrating our 20th anniversary.
Oh, yes. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. And Dave, well, I call him Dave because we have that personal relationship. He was like a key player. Imagine like somebody like a publisher from Miami Herald who didn't know anything about early childhood development. And then when Governor Child, I believe at the time, tasked him to lead that task force about, early childhood. So he had to do his homework. As a real journalist, what you do, you go out and research and talk to people to see how you can make So Dave, I can say so many things about him, but I have to say he's somebody when he's involved, when he learned, because if you talk to him, he's going to tell you, like, oh, I drank the Kool-Aid, because he heard about how early childhood investment makes such an impact. Sure. If you invest early in a child's life, the return in investment is so much greater than when you wait until they, already facing some challenges of they involved in juvenile justice system, or so when you start investing later, it's just like your return is like an investment. It's diminished. So once he understands, he's talked to the right people, he really using his own money to start. The Children's Trust started because Dave Lawrence, with his own money, to start, talking to people, educating people, doing fundraising to make sure we go to the voters to explain how doing this gonna make a bigger impact. Dedicated fund just for children in Miami-Dade County. That's unheard of in terms of people wanna tax themselves just to make their lives. So some people may not even have children. If you own a property, you're supporting the Children's Trust, right?
He's a giant in our community. I just, a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, he published a book. It's an amazing read. I recommend it to everyone. Yes. He's just played such a role in our community and continues. He continues to play that role.
Absolutely. He's a power, like you said before, he's a powerhouse. And he's not, he's not political, like, for lack of a better word, he's not political. So when he's supporting an issue, it's not really about, okay, how am I going to make myself look right about, it's about doing the right thing for our community, for our country.
He's
at the
very
time.
mission-driven.
Mission-driven, thank you. Yes, absolutely. And it was a pleasure watching. I still see him, his office is across from us at the United States.
I bump into him all the time.
Yeah, and we use the same parking, so sometimes I try to avoid him because he's going to ask me, what is the last book that you read?
Right, he always says that to me. I'll tell you a funny story about Dave. I meet him in your parking lot as well sometimes. So I met him at a lunch one day, and I said, Dave, I read your book. It was amazing.
Right.
And he said, well, you have to stop by so I can sign it for you. And I said, well, Dave, I have a confession to make. I got it on Audible, and I listened. No good, Paul. No good. You got to go out and get the book, come to my office, and let me sign it for you.
Absolutely.
And that's what I did. When he talks, you listen. When he talks, you listen.
That's typical Dave.
Typical Dave. Now, recently, you did get a new executive director, right? Correct?
Not so. When you said executive, as far as the CEO. No, it's been.
James.
Believe it or not, it's been what, 6 years?
Really?
Yes.
James Hodge, no?
Yes, Jim Hodge.
Yes.
That's my boss.
That's your boss.
Yes. No, it's, listen, I'm going to be biased here because I've been at the Children's Trust for 16 years.
Congratulations.
Yes. Came from Jackson, used to work for a major safety net of Miami-Dade County, Jackson Health System.
Your background is nursing, right?
Nursing, health education, public, yes. So came from that, then went to a conference. First time I heard about social determinant of health, which that's how we started this conversation. And I realized, like, as I was working for Jackson Health System, that I was not really addressing the root cause of, sometimes people, I was doing health education, but by the time we have to talk to people, there's so many other things going on in their life. What I was telling them was like going from one ear and coming out to the next, because they have some basic issues they were working with in their life. So I went to that conference that taught me about social determinant of health. I'm like, I think I'm on the wrong side of the issue, because what I'm doing is just like trying to put a patch on the problem as opposed to addressing the cause. So that's how I got involved with the Children's Trust. But going back to Jim Hodge as our CEO right now, his leadership has been amazing. And I'm saying I'm gonna be biased because I start getting to the executive level, like from the director to now chief programs officer, he recognized what I bring to the table and promoted me as a result. Even though I've been with the organization for so long and helped build a health team, that was my background, but it wasn't until he came on board. And I had a problem I want to share with you that I was dealing as a professional. I'm very outspoken about issues. You heard that? And sometimes, depending on who's your leader, right, they may not take it very well because it may be perceived as you criticizing your own organization as opposed to trying to make things better. But he wasn't intimidated. He liked the fact that I was very outspoken about what's wrong with the way we were doing things. So he quickly, first, I would say, created a level, like director. We didn't have that director level. Jim Hodge created that and didn't apply for the position, promoted me to director of programs.
Tell us a little bit. I remember you telling me about your promotion. We were having lunch. You told me about it.
Yes.
I was so happy and so proud of you for getting it. tell me a little bit, tell us, the audience, a little bit, what exactly is it you do?
So, right now, when I was the director of programs, when I got promoted, right now as the chief programs officer?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So, to go back before I get into what I do now, so about 3 years ago, when they created the director of programs position, so my boss at that time was Stephanie Sylvester, which is one of my idol. She was leading the programs team, and then what we do as a team, we are the one carrying out the mission of organization. We suppose our job is we don't create programs, but we select organizations that are doing wonderful things in our community
that fits your strategic portfolio.
Fit our strategic portfolio. So anyway, so my job at that time was to make sure I oversee the day-to-day operation of the team, the programs team, on how they interact with, the funded providers, and then making sure, look at my mission was to, because I told you I have a lot of ideas and opinion, so it was really to streamline some of our processes. I'm like, we have too much. We don't want to be. We've been saying we're quasi-government. Let's not be like a typical government with a bunch of paperwork. So I had to do continuous, go into the process to streamline what our service providers, they have to do. Because what I'm care about is people. If you provide after-school services, I want you to focus on that. Not getting too much involved in the burdensome of paperwork, government paperwork, and things like that.
Tell me, you mentioned something about when you were transitioning from being a nurse to where you are now, and you mentioned the word that I didn't quite understand, determinant of health factors or something like that.
Yes.
So explain it to me. What does that mean exactly?
Well, I don't know how much time you have, but I'm gonna try to make it, because this is one of my passions. That's what got me where I am today. So. When I first learned about social determinant of health, and they were like saying, I was in healthcare, and they were saying, do you know health, people being healthy, the health services you provide only represent 20% of what's gonna make somebody is healthy. 20%, I'm like,
you 20? Mean the actual medical services?
The actual medical services only represent 20%. So what are the rest? Like, they're like, economic stability, a roof on your, because they all impact your health, right?
Right.
So making sure you're not, your social emotional, the behavioral piece, and all those other stuff that my job was not until I'm like, okay, I'm only focusing on the 20% of what's gonna make somebody's healthy. No, I need to be in the 80%. Yes.
That's interesting because we're in business, and that's what I focus on, business and digital marketing stuff. So there's a theory you might know, it Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Absolutely.
So the basic foundation of needs is you got to satisfy those basic foundation first, right? And then after that, you can move up, and get to self-actualization, and all that. And I agree with that, and I think that's important, because if you don't have a stable environment, it's hard to build any foundation.
Yes,
right? If it's rocky. So if you're a child in the program, and without being specific in a program, you help them, you assist them. Maybe you assist them with a program to get them to another stage of life.
Right.
So you're maturing them, I guess, or educating them at the same time.
Absolutely. I'll give you a quick example. You may have a child who show up to your program, and they don't know how to control their anger. But your program is about academic. You want to help them with homework and all those other stuff. Yeah. But you have somebody in front of you that maybe the reason they're not doing well in school, it's not because they don't have the capacity. It's because that child may have, so many distractors about don't know how to get along with their peers, or that gets in the way. So before you can teach them how to do math, you have to teach them how to manage conflict, how to teach them. So all those other things you have to do first, because once you take care of that or show them how to do it, now they can focus on how to do math.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have children who come into the program who are maybe not ready to come into the program, and they need other social services to get them to that point.
Right.
So it's all about the holistic approach, and the problem is so big, and you know this better than anyone in this room, that there's no one entity that can handle it alone. It has to be like you do at the Trust. It has to be a portfolio approach.
Absolutely. Yes, we know that we need a variety. We have some of sisters organization like Children's Services Council of Palm Beach. The major thing is more on early childhood, because they know, if we put our investment there, we're going to have best return on our investment. But we know early childhood is important, but we know it takes way more than that, because you have to.
Life are different.
Exactly.
I mean, I grew up in New York. Family was okay. My parents were divorced before I was 12, and you know, I was doing my own thing. I mean, I had my first business before I was 18. But I'm not different, but myself, you know that environment. You know that you have opportunities to go left or go right, and with no guidance, you're on your own, and it's a tough thing when you talk about a child knowing their self. I mean, I know grown men that don't know themselves, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And if you don't have a foundation, I'm still trying to find that. But if you don't have that foundation, it's hard. And then if you add all those socio-economic things around it, you add all those other things, environmental things around it, it becomes even more troublesome. I think. We teach in the school system too, and we teach here down in Miami-Dade at the college level, and every once in a while, I've been doing that now here. Well, I've been teaching for 15 years, but teaching here at Miami-Dade, every once in a while, a student will come up to me and say, "Professor, I'm sorry I couldn't get my work done, but I didn't have, I was in and out of a place to live this week," and this is at the college level.
Yeah. It's common. It's common.
Yeah.
We have something in common, you and I, Professor Ken, with Juliette. She teaches as well.
Oh, cool.
Yes, I do.
Tell us a little bit
Tell us about that.
Yes. So, I teach one class at FIU, Florida International University.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, for in their Health Service Administration.
Oh, wow.
So my concentration for my master's in Health Service Administration. So the dean, we were involved because FIU, we applied for a grant. The way I met the dean, FIU was going for like a HRSA grant. But one thing with them, they don't we need a community provider. So I advised them to go with JC Trice Community Health Center. So, and then Children's Trust, we partner with them, we apply. So through that process, it's why don't you teach? You have a passion. Because I was the chair of the quality committee that was part of the grant. And the dean was Jean Strickland, her last name is Strickland. She's you never think about teaching? I see you have a passion for this. I said, yeah, actually I do. But I didn't know how to go about it because I was focusing on my career. She's no, you just submit your resume, go to the process. And I went to the process, and I think I've been doing it now for more than 5 or 6 years. And to the point about student coming to you with different issues and what they're facing, one thing I've been focusing with my student, and I do a healthcare quality management, because again, I think about managing, being a leader, and especially if you're going to focus on operation, you need to understand the concept of continuous learning and quality improvement, because we spend a lot of time in processes that we do things you may ask yourself when you start documenting your process within an organization, why do we do this again? And someone because that's the way it's been. That's the way it's always been. Nobody can justify the reason for doing certain thing. And for me, I like to challenge people on why are we doing this, and can you justify to me what value this step bring to the process. And then so since I'm teaching healthcare quality management, that's what I do with my student. And to make sure I make them think critically about when you're in charge or when you, whatever it is you do, even in your personal life, go to your routine. You can map it out to see like, what are some of useless stuff you do all the time?
Right, exactly.
And can you do more productive things? Yeah.
So that what is that 1440, 1440, so you know that's how many minutes we have in a day.
Yes.
How many minutes are you going to be productive in your life?
Yes.
And I like the way you think, because that's how I think too. And not to be I'm not trying to be challenging or counterproductive, but I want to know what the status quo is and how can we improve upon it.
Absolutely.
You tell me that story about if this is the way it's always been. There, we talk about books here. There's that book, Swim with the Sharks, Harvey Kay, years ago. So he tells this great book. You have to read it if you haven't already. He tells a story about they were buying some type of envelope or something like that, and he said, well, this is kind of odd that we're buying this type of envelope. And it says, well, who can tell me who's responsible for buying this? Well, go see Paul over there. Paul says, well, I don't know, go see Juliette over there. Juliette says, oh, Jim's been with the company 15 years, go ask him. So he finally at the gym, why? And he asked Jim, why are we buying this envelope? He goes, I don't know, it was on Dale 15 years ago, we're still buying it now. So it's just the rationale behind an action, sometimes it goes back all the way.
Absolutely.
And I think you need to challenge that, especially in our environment that we are today.
Well, in your position, that's critical, because one, you're running, I don't know how many programs that cover.
Well, that's just one program. I don't know, 300 and some programs.
And what is your annual budget?
Close to $170 million.
So $200 million. Yeah. Plus, you have a staff.
25 people.
That are responsible for managing that portfolio?
Absolutely. So the way I wish structure, once I think I got promoted as a director, and I started making moves, And I was fortunate to have a leader who was not afraid, because I was an executive at that time. I was just like, I don't know, middleman. So once I got promoted, I had an agenda. I'm like, listen, there's a lot of inefficiencies in how we operate as an organization, because people forget, so even though you're government or not-for-profit, you're still an organization.
Right.
You still have to run your organization in a
You're
way.
Accountable
you're
for that
still
money.
accountable for that money. So even the way we structure as a team, we have a position called administrator, and when I was looking, I'm like, when so many people are accountable, like we have our review process, something simple as how we review contracts. So many people involved, and I'm like, who ultimately is accountable for making sure like we have a quality? Because maybe 7 people involved in the routing process. Oh, maybe I'm relying on the next person to check for some things. I'm like, no. Let's make it clear. If we have somebody who's going to review, I want to define what is it they're looking for as they're reviewing. So that's just some example. So yeah, definitely my first focus, like when I got promoted, was on process improvement and quality improvement.
Not satisfied with the status quo.
Now,
yes.
You did something. You did something very interesting. We talked in the past shows about COVID, about how businesses adapted to COVID. You went to a really interesting model, didn't you? Like a 3-2 with COVID. They were in 2 days. They were in the field 3 days. Tell us about that.
Yes. So first, starting March, I think we went, because the type of work we do, it didn't have to be in person. But one thing we wanted to make sure, like, we still have providers that had to open their doors, because if you provide an after-school program, parents, and the school was closed, you need parents, some people, because we have different type of parents that's working, their job required, they have to go in person. Not everybody could afford to work from home.
Sure.
So what do we do with those parents? Like, we have to make sure we incentivize our providers to open their door during the pandemic. We give them PPE, we give them whatever they need to make sure they can serve families that may need a safe place to put their young children. Because we know some of them can stay at home and do the remote learning, but others might be too young to stay home by themselves.
Yeah, the remote learning wasn't the success they wanted to be. But you did something very innovative with your own staff.
Yeah, with my own staff. So we started, first of all, as we're learning, because I don't like making major decision until I have to base it on something, right? So at first we were like, okay, everybody go home, work from home until you hear from us. And we were fortunate to have Teams set up, Zoom, we have all that before COVID, all the tools before COVID. But we become more proficient with them, like during COVID, we trial and errors.
Right. We all learn.
Yes, we all learned from that. And then, but coming out from COVID, I think when the school system opened, they like, okay, people can come back in person. We say, yeah, we didn't have to bring everybody back in. Because like I said, we don't do direct services, we pay providers to do that. Mm-hmm. So we came up with a hybrid because we learned that we were very productive during COVID when people didn't have to fight traffic every day to come to work. So we kind of learned from that. I think that was one of the major silver lining, to see how we as an organization can work in an innovative way without doing the traditional 9 to 5, coming to the office every day.
So what did you do? What was the system you instituted?
So right now, like our permanent schedule, like we only require staff to come to the office 2 days a week.
Okay, and that's current right now?
Yes.
That is one.
Yeah.
Well, I expect that from you, since you're a change agent, right? Moving a shaker.
I hope so.
So you're a nonprofit organization, though, right?
So more like, we call it quasi-government.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious though, because you mentioned something about motivation with the team, and now you're managing a large team. What drives them? So if you're in a business environment, what drives you is profits or bonuses, and things of that nature. Maybe a pat on the back. Combination of both. So what drives your team to be successful?
I'm speaking on behalf of the team, because the team has changed during COVID, and we know we all experienced the Great Resignation.
Yes.
So I oversee a team of 25 people, and we know many people find their happiness somewhere else, which, especially if it's a big promotion or something, I'm always happy and celebrate with them. And some other people trying to figure out, this is not for me. COVID taught me that something that maybe I want to be fully remote. I don't want to come 2 days in the office. But anyway, so in terms of what drive people, so one thing I do as a leader, as part of the executive team, I meet, because I only directly supervise 4 people out of the 25. Right. So, but on a quarterly basis, I meet with everybody one-on-one, because I feel like it can be so easy to get out of touch when you become part of the executive team.
Right.
And if you only hear to a second hand, like talking to the direct report, which is the 4.
Hearsay.
Yeah, hearsay. So I like to get to the meat of thing, like talking to actual people. So I do it informally when I get a chance, but I make it formal every quarter. I meet with it's time consuming. Let me tell you, it's time consuming. But I feel like it's so valuable for me to really understand people, what drives them, to your question.
Yeah, you have to be connected to your team at every level. So that makes
you have to have your finger on the pulse.
On the pulse. And what drives people, and especially, I have 3 generations, I can say, within my team. I got a couple of Gen Z, Millennial, and I think Gen Xers like me. I'm part of, actually 4. I have baby boomers. I have baby boomers. I have at least 1 or 2 baby boomers.
We have that population sandwich.
Yes.
Baby boomers and there's Gen Z.
Exactly. So Millennial is the majority within my team. So it's so funny when you're talking to them about what drive. One thing that's consistent, I know, like I'm Gen Z, so and my generation will believe like, oh, you need to get to the office before your supervisor and leave after them, and all that stuff we learn, right?
First to be in,
last to be out, and but the other generation, like Millennial and Z, they don't think like that. They see like, oh, this is what I'm contributing to the organization, and once I done that, I'm good. I'm good. I don't need any other validation, and I don't care what you think kind of situation, as long as I'm doing the right thing. You tell me if I'm not doing the right thing. Like, they're gonna be very direct with you. So, but what I can say, what drive in general, as talk to people on a quarterly basis, with the consensus in my team is like, they believe in the mission and they feel like they're making a difference.
You have to have a heart for the mission.
You have to have a heart, right? Because when they go out, and something that's very common that I hear from my program managers, associate directors, and directors of programs, like, oh, when I go out and visit a program and I see a performance and I see this, is just like, it makes things, like, it makes me feel so good about what I do on a daily basis. So that's a consensus in our team. So I feel like our mission, and I don't say it lightly, really, making sure, you know, kids have a safe place to go. They got some enrichment program maybe the parent couldn't afford on their own to pay for. They have an outlet out there. Through our program, we provide this type of environment. And then when people go and observe those kids, and they feel good about themselves.
Yeah. I think that's vital. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we have this business angle that we always talk about. So I'm a business in Miami. Mm-hmm. I own a coffee shop, or I own 20 coffee shops, whatever it may be. Why should I care about what you do?
Great question, and actually I have an answer for you, because because it's something we've been trying. Actually, I started, it's so funny, even before I get to the children's shows, you know, it's funny thing. When I used to be at Jackson, I used to have a small grant with the, you know, the Kids Care Coalition, Florida Kids Care, to promote that. And when I go to small businesses, when I used to be a health educator for Jackson Health System, right, what I used to tell them, I'm like, this is what you should care. I say, question that I ask, how many employees do you have? How many of them, you know, it's, you know, getting your insurance? Do you provide insurance coverage? And how many of them they have families? And is it 2 to 3? How much does it cost you as an organization? Even though some of the costs might be passed on to the employee, but how much does it cost you as an organization to provide all those coverage, healthcare coverage to your employees and their family? And I said, do you know, if you let us to come and promote Florida Kid Care, it's cheaper to you and to the employee as far as how much they would pay, even if they don't qualify for the no payment or the $20 a month. Even if they were to buy in, it's cheaper to make sure to get insurance coverage to Florida Kid Care. But what I would say, fast forward, working for the children, just what I would tell an employer, let's say, depending on the program, if a child care program, I'm like, you know, one of the reasons your employee might call sick all the time is because they don't have a safe place to put the kids. So if Abuela is the one watching the kid and Abuela is not available, exactly, what's going to happen? They're going to call out sick. That's going to hit your bottom line in terms of productivity.
And look, we all lived through COVID. And you know, depending upon where you are, that was a major issue.
Absolutely.
With most individuals throughout the country, the daycares weren't open, or child care wasn't open. Come back to work, that's great, but what am I going to do with my 5-year-old?
They did an amazing thing, Professor Ken, if I may sing their praises for a moment. During COVID, they continued to fund their daycares to keep them solvent, even if children weren't going because of COVID, because they knew that when COVID was terminated or subsided, that they would need that facility. And you know, we talked about that in another program. You know, why should you continue to order from the local pizza place during COVID because you want them open when COVID is over? Well, they did that. Right? They kept Kids Care open during COVID.
We did that, and that's something I was very proud. And I think, and I have to say, my CEO never told me that, but I suspect my performance during COVID and my leadership during COVID kind of got me to the executive seat after that, because one thing I really, because I was very intentional during COVID, like I was like, we're gonna continue. I march into my CEO's office. I'm like, we're gonna continue paying people, whether or not they can work. Right. And we have to be careful because we're government organization, and we have to manage taxpayers' dollars in a way. But I'm like, we cannot be part of the problem, because if we say like, oh, if people cannot show up to work, we're not going to pay them, what's going to happen, we're going to have a major problem. Right. Continue our programming when things get back to normal. We know social services is one of the lowest pay. It's not like corporate America. Like, we need to incentivize people to stay in the field. So for a couple of months, we did send out letters to all funded providers, say, we're going to pay everybody in your payroll. Like, that's part of our program. Right. Whether they can show up to work or not, whether you open your door or not, we're going to pay them. And we did that. We did that.
You said something amazing. We were in a meeting together. I won't say who's in the meeting, but we were in a meeting, and I was kind of like a fly on the wall. I was in the meeting, but I was just sitting there, and I was listening to Juliette. And you said something in that meeting that really took me aback. You said to this provider, I don't care if you make a mistake. Mm-hmm. I just care that you're doing the right thing.
Yes.
And that was an amazing, for someone who is a funder, someone who's an administrator of a program, to say to a program participant, I understand you're going to make mistakes. I understand that. But as long as you're doing your best, it's okay. We'll fix the mistake. That was an amazing statement.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to tell you, coming from a hospital setting, we're dealing with people's lives, right? So it was a good thing to tell on yourself. So if you make a mistake, don't hide it, because by hiding it, you might create more problem to the patient, to the hospital, like that have to pay, for lawsuit and things like. So the culture I came from, it's about promoting, telling on yourself. Like, we're not gonna chastise you. Not gonna punish you.
We're in this together.
We're in this together. We love the fact that you're coming forward with when you make a mistake. So that's very important, and I carry that to social service. That tell on yourself. Don't be afraid, because first of all, you might think it's a big deal, and then at the end of the day, if we didn't put any children's life in danger, we didn't do anything illegal, it's okay, we can work through it.
Always recover. Kenny, my son, his name's Kenny, years ago, he said, I made a mistake, and he was standing by me, and I said something, probably a colorful type of word. And he said, don't worry, Dad. Only God doesn't make mistakes. Something along those lines. Well, he's so much smarter than a young man than I would be. So believe it or not, we're coming to the end of our discussion. It's been about 45 minutes already.
Right.
So that flies when you're having
Oh my goodness, yes. So, I enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you very much. So before we wrap up the show, can you tell us exactly what you want everyone to leave with, so that everyone understands what Children's Trust is and how we can help?
Yes, absolutely. So, yes, Children's Trust, if you a parent in Miami-Dade County, or you a provider, like you do social services in Miami-Dade County, I would say go to our website right now to see all the things that we fund to support our community. And I have to say, if you don't know, the first 5 years when we came into existence, we did tell the taxpayer, we're not going to be there in perpetuity. Like, we're not going to be there forever. We want you to judge us on our performance. Like, don't vote because it was to voter referendum. Like, we became the Children's Trust. We said, the first time you vote, it's about to form this organization to serve children. And we're going to come back in 5 years. based on our performance to decide whether or not you want us to continue, right? We did that, and we got more than 80% of the vote to pass, and that's amazing. That says something about what we do as an organization. But if you don't know about us, we put nurses in school, we do aftercare program, we do early childhood, like we give scholarship for people who not qualify for subsidized childcare, because you may be in that fiscal cliff, like you make a little bit more than what the minimum is, but not enough to cover your expenses. We do all that. We do parenting programming to support our parents, because we know they need those tools to help them, parenting their children. So that's what I would say about us. Take a look in our website to see. We have some short videos on how we fund and what type of program we do. Take a look. But we are dedicated funding source in Miami-Dade County to exclusively serve children of Miami-Dade counties and their families.
And that's very important. Well, I know I've learned a lot, and it's a pleasure to meet you and see some of your successes and what you've done. So I really appreciate the time that you spent here with us.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to talk about.
It was an honor for us.
Thank you, Paul. I know you and I went way back, and I have to say we're looking for, if I can do this plug, volunteer reviewers, because that's how you and I met.
Yes, yes.
You were a volunteer.
I was a volunteer. I was a volunteer reviewer on an RFP process, and Juliette was the company representative on our committee, so we had a lot of back and forth, and that's how that's gone back years ago. Oh my goodness!
Yes.
That's amazing.
So we're looking for volunteer reviewers right now.
Now he's making you a YouTube star, so you'll basically say.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate it. And we'll have you back when we have more things to talk about and successes. Maybe at year 25, right?
Yeah. Hey.
That would be great.
Yes. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Well, thank you. So I guess that's our show for today. I want to thank you for joining us. This is Professor Ken.
And this is Professor Paul Marino.
And we'll see you out there for our next broadcast.
Thank you for viewing us.
This is the Forward Motion Business Show with Professor Ken and Professor Paul A. Marino. Hit new heights. Start with forward motion.